Good evening, Oakland and beyond. Hope everybody is doing well out there on this beautiful Friday night in Oaktown, the East Bay, Northern California, and beyond, wherever you happen to be tuning in from on our Twitch channel, or if you're catching the recording of this on the YouTube channel. Welcome once again to another exciting edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland, for now, athletics, as the 20th season continues on down the road here on A's Fan Radio. Let's get the Unite the Bay edition of AFR underway. Again, hope everybody is doing well out there this evening, wherever you are tuning in from and watching this edition of the show. It is, once again, the Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown checking in with you from the third version of Dub 6 Studios, which, of course, now is located in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Show, of course, originally was scheduled to come at you all roughly around this time yesterday evening. That ended up, of course, getting pushed back to tonight because after I got back from rolling out with my former roommate from when we were over in Eastmont to go pick up the wifey from the job in Berkeley, my back decided to, be my back and act up on me right after we got back from picking her up. So that's why the show got delayed and pushed back. So apologies for that. But hey, we're here. We're at you right now. And as always, we appreciate all of y'all that have supported the show over these years and know that sometimes things come up and cause us to have to sometimes reschedule and push back broadcasts. Sometimes that's by a day, couple of days, and sometimes that obviously has led to us doing 2-week recap editions of the show, or longer, 2+ week. I want to say there was one time we did like a 3-week recap one time because we ended up missing 3 weeks because of something that was going on either my end, boss's end, or both of our ends during that point in time. Also, at this moment, I'm waiting to see if the boss man will be joining us for this edition of AFR tonight. Had some things going on his end that he didn't know would be able to possibly allow him to join us for this edition of the show or not tonight. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, if the other half of what's become known as the dynamic duo here on this show over the last decades. Yeah, Boss and I have been tag teaming for basically half of the existence of this here podcast, basically this podcast's back half decade of its 20-year existence. Going to have to wait and see if he will be joining me tonight or if it will be another one of those nights where I end up hosting this crazy fan-ran produced podcast for its entirety, which should be a normal 2-hour show, maybe a little under, maybe a little over, depending on how things go out at the end. Especially since I got to go all the way back to, I think, the 20th to recap things with the FIFA Women's World Cup. So a little extra soccer recap action coming your way on tonight's edition of the show, aside from the usual Oaktown soccer segment to see what the Oakland Roots have been up to. The FIFA World Cup recap and preview of what's on tap with that for the next week will be taking place where the Bear Raid segment would normally go. As, of course, just like its podcast counterpart, the segment version of the Bear Raid is in a summer hibernation mode. Probably maybe we'll fire things back up with the segment edition maybe in the middle of August, but the podcast version of the Bear Raid, of course, will be resuming on August the 27th, and that also is broadcasted right here on this Twitch channel. You can catch the recordings of that as well over on the YouTube channel. And, of course, if you haven't had a chance to do so since it went out just a little after 5 p.m. this evening, go ahead and make your way over to either our Facebook page or our Twitter page and go ahead and fire away at your responses for the fan question of the night for tonight's edition of A's Fan Radio. The reminder over on both Facebook.com/A's Fan Radio and at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter have gone out literally just within this past couple of seconds. And like I said, the initial posts have been up since 5 o'clock, so just look for the post or tweet on either Facebook or Twitter that says Fan Question of the Night. Follow the directions, submit your responses, and of course, I will read off all of those responses during the final segment of tonight's show. And one other thing real quickly as well, obviously there is a game going on right now. A game might have actually possibly wrapped up by this point in time. It was in the 8th inning, I want to say, over in Colorado, the first of a 3-game series with the Rockies, where Oakland was up 7-5 in the bottom of the 8th inning. That'll probably be a game that, even though that's obviously going on right now, I'll probably wait until next week's edition of the show to recap that game along with the rest of the games that'll be going on with the Rockies series over the course of this weekend. Now, with that being said, before we get on into the normal shenanigans in the first half of the show of taking a look back at what the A's have been up to on the field over the course of the last week, we obviously have to lead off things with, this was where we talked about the latest with Howard Terminal, but pretty much since April, if in case you've been under a rock somehow or another, John Fisher, being punk-ass John Fisher, got cold feet, pulled out, has been trying to get something done in Vegas. They got the funding approved by the Nevada legislator. Again, this is for anyone out there that somehow has not known about this for some miraculous, bloody reason up to this point in time. Hey, you never know. Someone could have been camped out and lost track of things, have been out in the wilderness for the last several months, and now just is coming back to society and is just now learning all this stuff. But yeah, that all got approved. Supposed to be the ceremonial signing a couple weeks after that happened. That still has not happened yet. And pretty much over the last week or so, some rumblings coming out that are kind of, not working in the favor of the A's with moving along with this whole situation. One of the first things, of course, coming out earlier this week and was suspected by myself, Boss Man, many of you out there that listen to this podcast, and probably the rest of the A's fandom out there, and any sane baseball person, as we all suspected those renderings that were presented by the A's showing their whole idea for what they supposedly want to do with that site at the Tropicana for their stadium that they basically threw out there just to help them get the funding from the Nevada legislator. As we all expected, the renderings that they used were garbage, not real, not actually officially any sort of thing. It was just dog and pony show material to help them get the funding approved for that bloody bill. And apparently they won't have an architect hired to do things with this Vegas stadium until November, supposedly, which is kind of funny given that supposedly the deadline, but they could, I guess, technically count this the deadline to have the quote-unquote binding vote in place with anything either here or elsewhere where the ballpark was January 15th, or they get cut off from the revenue sharing, but they still got a long ways to go as far as, relocation committee reviewing all this and sending their thoughts on it up to the owners and the owners vote and all that. And maybe possible deadline in regards to that. I'll get into that a little further here in a bit, but I kind of want to just get back to this whole situation. But yeah, name's kind of escaping me right now on the individual that's the quote-unquote architect or designer for the A's at this point in time. But yeah, he basically said, yeah, those designs, wad those up. Those weren't real. That was just, to give you something. So apparently right now it's between Ginsler and Big, and Big's involved with, I guess, another company as well. And this is, two groups that are not new to working with the A's here. They actually were, working as part of a group of like 3 or 4 different design firms and development firms that were involved with the efforts for the Howard Terminal project, and now they'll be competing against each other, I guess, apparently, to design whatever they end up doing with this supposed stadium right there where the Tropicana currently sits right now on the Las Vegas Strip. And, you would think with something like that, you would want to have this stuff addressed and handled and that type of, thing in place before the end of the, damn near the end of the year, if, more than 2 months out from, deadlines on with this. I don't know, man. It's just crazy how ass backwards things with the A's operate. And then you also got news coming out today that the various individuals that are involved with, running and operating and owning the site that the Tropicana is on that rented out to Bally's had one of their monthly or quarterly meetings either today or within some point this week, and having basically concerns about things going along with this project, because the fact that they also want to build a whole brand new hotel on this side aside from what the A's ultimately want to end up doing, and they can't move forward with that until things are finalized with this stadium. You've heard rumbles about the A's saying that they think that the 9 acres may not be enough to accommodate this thing, and they may have to get more. And if they're not able to get more, then it's going to be obvious that's not going to be a retractable roof stadium down there if it happens, folks. That's going to be a damn dome. Let's be real. And most likely will be the direction it heads in if that ends up getting built. And, if you haven't had a chance, by the way, check out the video that Casey Pratt put out there in regards to this whole situation. It's typical 100% pure fire from our boy Casey, so definitely make sure to get his take on this whole matter as well. Now, Oh God, just it's funny watching this whole thing happen. That's why I wish Boss were here right now, because I definitely want to hear Boss chime in on this whole situation. So yeah, they can't move forward with their plans for their new hotel until things with the A Stadium gets finalized. They have to figure out, parts of that site that could be potentially, areas that could be shared revenue between them and the A's, or shared areas for different things and whatnot. And, also members of this board basically being adamant that the A's and everyone involved with this project have been telling us that they only need 9 acres with this. So 9 acres is what they're going to get, is what it basically seems like. And then you hear something come out of this as well, that apparently a deadline of New Year's of next year for a relocation vote. First, we've heard of that, and the Nevada Independent, by the way, is one of the news outlets that put this info out, by the way. We shared the link on our Twitter page and our Facebook page earlier in the day, so if you haven't had a chance to do that, jump on those and find it, or just go to the Nevada Independent, and you'll be able to find that information on there. So, yeah, it's going to be real funny to see how this happens. And you get this gut feeling, or, maybe in my case, it's my stomach doing knots and doing twists because of the fact that I slammed 4 donuts and 2 hamburgers as part of my dinner last night before I crashed out after we ended up not doing the show. But you almost got this sensation, feeling in your gut that John Fisher is going to screw this up. Wouldn't be surprising and new, given that's what's happened in this entire saga with him trying to get a stadium built somewhere for this team. Best opportunity still by many, including myself, we all feel is Howard Terminal, and where he should be doing that. But ultimately, up to him if he comes back to that, or the reality of the preferred choice is that he sells to a new ownership group and they get it done. And my last tidbit that I want to touch bases on to close out things with this week's talk on the future of the A's going forward is it is just crazy, the egg on their face that the Las Vegas Review-Journal continues to get. They're already basically being looked at as kind of an unofficial PR firm, damn near, for the Oakland A's, especially with all the various different fluff pieces that Mick Akers ends up throwing out there. And it almost seems like, too, that whenever anything positive involving any of the fan-ran reverse boycotts go down, or anything that shows that Oakland obviously was not the problem in this, or something comes out about issues down there with things on the Vegas end, Akers or somebody at the Review-Journal puts out some quick little hit fluff piece to try to make it seem like, oh, everything's all fine and dandy, and unicorns and rainbows and roses and Skittles, and, just it's funny, ridiculous, but just the biggest addition to that egg on the face for the Las Vegas Review-Journal is obviously it's all finding out on July 26th, 7th, earlier this week, forgot the exact date, but finding out that their Twitter page supposedly accidentally blocked the Twitter page for Schools Against Stadiums, which, by the way, is a group of various teachers in Las Vegas and throughout Nevada that are fighting and opposing the public funding for the stadium down there, and are doing various things from trying to get it on next year's ballot so the public can vote on it and decide if it's actually worth doing, or if the money should go to other things. And they're obviously looking into other matters to try to combat this whole situation on their end as well. Review-Journal basically blocking Schools Over Stadiums on Twitter, supposedly accidentally, because after being called out by numerous individuals on social media, including us here at A's Fan Radio, they finally unblocked it, admitted that they had done it by accident, and they were going to investigate the situation. But then they go and proceed to call the organization Stadiums Over Schools, which we all know is not what the group is about, and didn't bother to correct that mistake in their apology until 9 hours later, while they're still getting dragged through the mud for not just the first mistake of quote-unquote accidentally blocking this group, but then you don't even get the group's name right and you don't correct it for 9 hours. It's like, first of all, I don't think that this was an accident. Now, I jokingly put out there that Mick Akers was probably the one behind blocking it. Is that the case? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on if the Review-Journal allows their journalists to have admin access to their main page. I don't know if that's the case with the Journal. Maybe it was a situation where it was a intern just making a mistake. But, I really highly doubt that whole situation was not done purposely. And for real, I highly doubt there's an investigation being done on it. We'll have to see, and if they actually even mention anything about that, and I'll probably bust their balls a little bit here and there just to be a smart ass to it, and I hope others do as well. But it will be interesting to see if they actually admit anything as far as that investigation goes, or if that's just something they keep in house. But yeah, shame on you, Review Journal. You're not acting like a newspaper or a news source at all. You're acting like a damn unofficial PR firm for Kovel and this bullshit that any sane person down there doesn't want. It's just like how the majority of people in Las Vegas felt before the Raiders moved down there. They don't want a relocated franchise down there. They want an expansion team. So, again, it's going to be real funny and interesting to see the twists and turns that this whole shit show continues to end up taking as things progress. So, yeah, keep your eyes and ears tuned here for any updates on this matter. Obviously, we'll also post updates up on our Facebook and our Twitter pages whenever they go down. And if you don't happen to see or hear anything from us, you know who and where to go to on social media to get updates. And you also know, obviously, who to avoid for misinformation and bullshit tied to this matter when you go to look up stuff out there as well. Alrighty, on that note, let's go ahead and begin the recap portion of things here on this night's edition of A's Fan Radio. We, of course, go all the way back to a series that began on July the 20th. It was a 4-game series that took place right here in Oakland at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum as a pair of AL West rivals faced off in a 4-game set from the 20th to the 23rd. Your Oakland Athletics, of course, hosting their AL West rival Houston Astros in the ballpark in the Deep East. Let's go ahead and take a look at what went down in the first game of, again, what would be a 4-game series to close out a homestand at the Coliseum that, of course, began back on July the 14th. Game 1, again, between your Oakland Athletics and the Houston Astros going down on Thursday, July the 20th. I just love this. I actually had the box score for this game open before doing tonight's show, and now it wants to sit here and load right before I do things. God, I just love technology in the 21st century. You would think things would move faster, but they don't end up doing that. So my apologies. I'm waiting for game day to load my end. Here we go. Again, here's what went down in the first of 4 games between Houston and Oakland. This, of course, being game 1 back on Thursday, July the 20th. The A's would score first in that Thursday evening contest with the first run of the game coming across in the bottom of the first inning. Unfortunately for the Green and Gold, that would be the only run that they would get across the rest of the way out in that contest. The Houston Astros would score their first 2 runs of the game in the top half of the 6th inning, and what would be their final run of the contest in the top of the 9th is they would go on to take game 1 of this 4-game set over Oakland by a final score of 3-1. Houston, 3 runs, 5 hits, no errors. Oakland, 1 run, 6 hits, and no errors in that Thursday contest. France picking up the win for Houston as he improved to 5-3 on the year. Harris taking the loss for Oakland, falling to 2-4 on the year. And Presley picking up his 22nd save of the year for Houston in that one. Home runs in the contest. You only had 1 home run hit between either team in this one, and the lone home run coming off the bat of a Houston Astro as Bregman hit his 14th bomb of the 2023 season. Now, again, we shouldn't be shocked, unfortunately, given the way this team has played thus far this year, and dating back, unfortunately, to what I dubbed as rooted and straight donkey ass last season. I call this season rooted and straight donkey ass 2.0, and that's not just on the field, unfortunately, that's obviously off of it as well, with the ridiculousness of what Fisher, Kovel, and company have been doing with all that stuff and whatnot. So, not surprised, unfortunately, to see the Green and Gold take a loss in this opener of this 4-game series. It's just, again, one of those situations where they do have a lead early, 1-run lead, or you've had situations where even they've scored a couple runs early in the game, have had early leads, and then just unfortunately, during the back half, Penn's not able to hold it. Starter loses the things and falls off the rails before he finishes off his workload. And the offense just completely falls asleep the rest of the way out. And basically as a result, or the combination of all that stuff, it allows the opponent to come back in and win games, and that's what happened here to begin things with this 4-game series. So luckily it was a situation where A's didn't get blown out, but it's obviously a team you're facing where the possibility is there of getting blown out by a squad like the Houston Astros. Let's go ahead now and see what went down in Game 2 of this 4-game series, which of course went down on Friday, July the 21st. Houston would score first in that Friday contest with the first run of the game coming across in the top half of the first inning. They would add on to that lead with a 2-run spot in the top of the third before the Oakland Athletics would finally get on the board with their first run of the contest in the bottom of the third inning. Houston would add on with 2 runs in the top of the fifth, with the Oakland Athletics answering back with 3 runs in the bottom half of that fifth inning. Oakland, unfortunately, was not able to score anything at all from the sixth inning on. Houston would get 1 more run across coming in the top of the seventh as they would take Game 2 of the series, winning by a final score of 6-4. Houston, 6 runs, 9 hits, no errors. Oakland, 4 runs, 7 hits, no errors in the Friday game of this 4-game series. Valdez picking up the win for the Astros as he improves to 8-6 on the year. Sears taking the loss for the Athletics. He falls to 1-7 on the year after this one. And Presley converts saves on back-to-back games as he picks up his 23rd save of the year for Houston in this one. Home runs in the contest, all coming off of Houston Astros yet again, and multiple Houston Astros going deep in this one. You had Tucker hit 3 by himself in this contest, so he brings his season total up to 17. And Bregman going deep yet again for the second game in a row as he increases his season total to 15 after the second game of this 3-game series. So, again, unfortunately, same results. Had a little bit of a battle from the A's, kind of near the middle of it, but again, basically back half on, everything fell off and you weren't able to catch back up to your opponent and get a W in this contest. And just unfortunately, same old from Rooted in Straight Donkey Ass 2.0 in 2023. Let's go ahead and see what went down in the third game of this 3-game series and see if the Oakland Athletics would fall down to a third consecutive loss against their AL West rival, or if they would be able to actually pick up a W in the third game of the series. Game 3, of course, happened to be a night game on a Saturday in Oakland, as it was a fireworks night at the Coliseum. Country fireworks night, by the way, for those of you that did not make it out to the game. Yours truly and a couple others were actually out on 66th Avenue, a.k.a. Mob Alley, as, of course, we were celebrating the 1-year anniversary of when Godfather Grizz Jones, unfortunately, left us a little over a year ago. Chilling out there, tailgating, listening to the game on the radio, and, of course, kick back and watch the fireworks after that game wrapped up. Here was what went down on the field before those fireworks went down at the Coliseum in Game 3 of this series between your Oakland Athletics and the Houston Astros, which, of course, went down back on Saturday, July the 22nd. All the scoring in this one would not take place until the back half of the contest. You would actually have goose eggs by both sides through the first 5 innings of the game. The Astros would get the first lead of the contest with a single run in the top half of the 6th inning, and then unfortunately it would be their turn this time to not put up any runs the rest of the way out. The A's, on the other hand, they would take the lead with a 2-run spot in the top of the 6th, and they would actually keep that lead through the remainder of the contest, adding on single runs in the bottom of the 7th and a final single run in the bottom of the 8th inning to win the third game of this 4-game series over the Astros by a final score of 4-1. Oakland, 4 runs, 6 hits. They made 2 errors in the contest. Houston, 1 run, 6 errors, no errors. Houston is 1 run, 6 hits, and no errors in that Saturday night contest at the Coliseum. Pruitt picking up the win for Oakland. He improved to 2-6 on the year, while Javier took the loss for Houston, falling to 7-2 on the year. And Trevor May picks up his 9th save of the year for the Elephants in that one. Bregman, yet again, 3 games in a row with at least 1 ding-dong doodle off of the green and gold. He hits his 16th of the year in this one. You actually did finally, for the first time in this series, have some Oakland Athletics hit some home runs, as Galoff, who, of course, just recently got called up, he's one of the team's top prospects, hitting his first home run of the year and his first career home run ever in the contest. So congratulations to the young man on that one. And of course, you had Seth Brown hitting his 10th Brownie Bomb of the year in a 4-1 win for the A's in that one. And hey, just you got to appreciate him and enjoy him while you can, regardless if you're a fan and even the guys that are on this team, because these wins have unfortunately been rare and far and few in between for the most part in 2023. Now, would the A's be able to actually get a victory in the finale of this series and cause a split to go down at the Coliseum? Or would the Astros be able to get out of town, taking 3 out of 4 and winning the series against the Athletics? Let's find out what went down in the finale of this 4-game set between the Houston Astros and your Oakland, for now, Athletics. Game 4, of course, going down at the Coliseum on Sunday, July the 23rd. Crazy, by the way, that pretty much a lot of these games were all close-scoring games with, neither opponent really dominating the other one at the Coliseum. Anyway, here's what went down in the final game on July the 23rd. The A's would score first in the final game of the 4-game series with a single run in the top half of the first inning, or the bottom half of the first inning, and would hold on to that 1-0 lead until the top of the 5th, when the Astros would knot it up with a single run of their own in the top half of that 5th frame. The A's would take the lead back with a single run in the bottom half of the 6th inning, but unfortunately for them, that'd be the last time that they would score in this one, and double unfortunately for them, that wouldn't be the case for the Astros, as they would tie up the game with a single run in the top of the 7th and then ultimately put the winning run across in the form of a single run in the top of the 9th to win this series 3 games out of 4 over your Oakland Athletics and take the finale of the 4-game set at the Coliseum by a final score of 3-2. Houston, 3 runs, 5 hits, 2 errors. Oakland, 2 runs, 7 hits. No errors in the contest. Neris picking up the win for Houston as he improves to 6-2 on the year. Smith taking the loss for Oakland as he falls to 1-2 on the year. And Abreu picks up his 3rd save of the year for the Astros in the final game of that 4-game series. Home runs in this contest, you had Diaz hit his 11th home run of the year. Dubon hit his 5th homer of the year in this one as well. And shockingly, Bregman did not hit a home run for the 4th game in a row here. You actually did not get a bomb from Alex Bregman in this contest. Bleday hit the lone homer for the Oakland Athletics in that Sunday contest on the 23rd of July. That, of course, being his 8th homer of the year for Oaktown in that one. So, hey, put up a little bit of a battle. They played Houston close in the 3 games that they did end up losing, and actually were able to have a decent 3-run lead in the 1 game that they did win in this series. But again, new day, new series, same old shit from Rooted in Straight Donkey Ass 2.0 in 2023. Alrighty, reminder time, there is a fan question of the night sitting out there for those of you that haven't had a chance to chime in on it yet on either our Facebook page or our Twitter page. So if you're one of those that have not responded to that since it went up just a little after 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time this evening, go ahead and make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter right now and submit your responses to the fan question of the night for the Unite the Bay edition of A's Fan Radio. Just look for the post or tweet over on either Facebook or Twitter that says Fan Question of the Night. Follow the directions on how to submit your responses to that Fan Question of the Night. Submit your responses, and yours truly will, of course, read off every and all responses to that fan question during the final segment of tonight's show. The fan question of the night, of course, for this edition of A's Fan Radio is, we want to hear your thoughts on how the Unite the Bay played out over in San Francisco on July the 25th. And by the way, if you happen to have attended that game over in San Francisco, we want to hear from y'all and your thoughts on how things played out over there. We come back from our first break of the night. We will check in on how Unite the Bay went down and also recap the 2 games over at Oracle Park between your Athletics and the Giants. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back here in a bit on show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of your number 1 source for everything and anything on your Oakland, for now, Athletics, A's Fan Radio. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003, and of course, celebrating our 20th anniversary season on the air. It is show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of A's Fan Radio. Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, of course, coming at you from Dub 6 Studios, the third variant of Dub 6 Studios during the time that I have been serving as the producer of the show. We, of course, originally started off with the first version of Dub 6 Studios over at my late grandparents' house over in San Leandro, just right there on the SL Oakland border. Version 2, of course, was the old spot that I was staying at for the last couple years over in the Eastmont Hills, and now the third version, of course, being right here in the Diamond District in what was my late mother-in-law's house. Now we're, again, over in the Diamond. So, yeah, third version of Dub 6 Studios that we've been doing A's Fan Radio out of. And, of course, yours truly happens to also be one half of a tag team that's been running amok here on this show for over the last decade. That, of course, being the Dynamic Duo. But the other half of the Dynamic Duo has yet to join us for tonight's edition of the show. Is, of course, the main man, the boss man, was undecided on if he was going to be able to join in tonight. Had some possible stuff happening on his end that might allow him to call in, may not allow him to call in. Still waiting to hear from him one way or another, either by him chiming me up on the phone or shooting me a text message to let me know if he's not able to join us. And pretty much usually if we haven't heard anything by about 9:30 on, it's a pretty safe bet that it's most likely one of those nights where he will not be joining us for the broadcast. But we'll wait and see if he pops in between now and 9:30, or if it's going to be one of those nights where this legally 5150 mofo is solo and talking your heads off solo for a 2-hour edition of the show. Until we hear from the other half of the Dynamic Duo, let's go ahead and continue on with things here on this Unite the Bay edition of AFR, as we, of course, get into what exactly the Unite the Bay was tied into. If, again, this is one of those situations where you haven't been following along with things here in a while on the show, or out there, or just you've been busy and you lost track of things. Reason it being Unite the Bay is because after the Oakland Athletics, of course, had an off day on Monday, July the 24th, they began a 2-game series across the Bay in San Francisco at Oracle Park against the Cross Bay rival and NL West members, a.k.a. the Pumpkin Yoo-Hoos, a.k.a. Sometimes we refer to them as Suckfest, but obviously the NL West San Francisco Giants. Normally the Battle of the Bay is what it is when these two teams go down, but kind of a situation, and obviously given the circumstances going on with the future of the Oakland Athletics franchise, one of those years where kind of it doesn't have the same bite and feel that you normally would have with the Battle of the Bay. And A's fans, of course, using it as an opportunity to do yet another version of the reverse boycott situation that has been going on since last June, when they, of course, did the June 13th We Are Here reverse boycott at the Coliseum when they hosted Tampa Bay on a Tuesday night. You've seen it since continue in some form of capacity with A's fans doing that stuff at the MLB draft, continuing that message, of course, during the All-Star game up in Seattle during the All-Star break, and them basically pulling it off yet again during the course of the first game of this quick little 2-game series in San Francisco. I'll get a little bit more into what went down on the fan side of things here in a bit. But before getting to that, let's go ahead and first recap the first game of that quick little 2-game trip to China Basin between your Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. Again, if you missed out on things, or if you're one of those individuals that you're really not watching what's going on the field and you're just basically, screw it, I'll just listen to what the corporal and the gang have to say, is get that as my A's fix for the week. Here is what went down back on Tuesday, July the 25th, in the first game of the 2-game set over at Oracle Park in San Francisco. The Giants would get on the board first in this contest with a single run in the bottom half of the 5th inning. Yeah, you basically had goose eggs from both these teams through the first 4.5 innings of the contest, and it would basically remain a 1-0 Giants lead until the top half of the 8th, where the A's would finally get their first run of the game across and tie the game up at 1 run apiece. The Giants, though, would retake the lead and relatively quickly by answering back with a single run of their own in the bottom half of that 8th inning. The A's not able to do anything to either tie or retake the lead in the top half of the 9th as they put up a goose egg in the top half of the 9th inning, which of course means the Giants took game 1 of this quick little 2-game series in the city by the Bay, defeating the Elephants by a final score of 2-1. San Francisco, 2 runs, 4 hits, no errors. Oakland, 1 run, 5 hits, 1 error in that first contest back on Tuesday, July the 25th. Rogers picks up the win for the Giants, and this one as he improved to 4-4 on the year. Erceg, E-R-C-E-G, taking a loss for the Athletics as he falls to 2-2 on the year, and Duvall picks up save number 31 for the pumpkin-colored guys in that contest. No home runs for the A's in this one, no home runs for the Giants in this contest, so the Giants taking the opener of this 2-game series. But pretty much I think that the bigger focus, at least from how I feel and probably how many others feel out there, is what the fans, and by the fans I don't mean just A's fans here, ladies and gentlemen, but Giants fans as well, doing before the game and during the game as well, is of course the whole purpose of this Unite the Bay stuff that went down back on this past Tuesday over in San Francisco was basically A's fans giving Giants fans the opportunity to become part of our movement and join in our fight to basically protest what we feel is an unjustified relocation effort of a baseball team that's been here in Oakland for the past 50-plus years, going on almost 60 years here in the next, several years, potentially. And just, and again, another great organization and event put on by the Qs that, of course, make up the Oakland 68s and the guys over at the Last Dive Bar. They met up at South Beach Park, which is kind of, to the, I guess a little bit to the north, you could say, of where Oracle Park is. There used to be a boat that was a restaurant there many, many years ago, back when the stadium first opened in the early 2000s. It since has been taken out of there, and I want to say the park was there. The park's been added on to since then, but that's where basically everybody met up a couple hours before the game, handing out black versions of that Kelly Green Cell shirt that we, of course, everyone saw passed out at the initial reverse boycott that happened back in June. A shirt, by the way, that if you've forgotten is heading to the MLB or the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So that is a Hall of Fame shirt going out there. So yeah, black versions of those going on, being passed out to individuals that came and met up out there. You had A's fans putting those on. You had Giants fans putting them on. So basically a big, huge group of not just folks in green and gold, but folks in orange and black as well, supporting for and being down for the cause of the Oakland Athletics staying in the city of Oakland. And apparently you even had Giants employees that were out there and helping the 68s and the dive bar pass out some of those shirts. And it was great to see that, especially since myself, Bossman, and many others out there have kind of, had our issues with the ownership portion of the Giants, and have always felt like the Giants behind the scenes are trying to push the A's out of the Bay Area so that way they can not only have control of the entire Bay Area market, but basically have a monopoly on the entire Northern California baseball market as well. So be real interesting to see if those of you who's actually vote no, regardless if they're serious about it, or if it's a sympathy no vote, or if they want to vote in favor of relocation. But it was very appreciative to see members of the Giants fan base coming out and supporting and being behind us in that whole situation and standing up alongside A's fans and doing basically one of the many things that we've seen gone down in this reverse boycott situation since the June 13th game, which is the whole standing up in silence during the first at-bat of the top half of the fifth inning. And then once that at-bat's done, begin a loud-ass sell the team chant. And apparently a sell the team chant broke out again during the second game of this series, which, of course, we'll be getting to recapping here in a little bit. And that wasn't even a, quote-unquote sanctioned or official reverse boycott, but you basically had almost the same loud effect that you did at this game. And I heard through the grapevine as well that you apparently did have a few knuckleheads from the Giants fan base out there that tried to start crap with A's fans. Some of the stuff that myself and others have heard over the years. The shit talking to Oakland, talking in favor of the A's being moved out of Oakland, and it was nice to hear that individuals that were Giants fans were real quick to shut down any of their fellow Giants fans were starting to do any of that stuff. I heard there was one individual that I guess there was a cat out there that was catcalling and saying go to Vegas and all this stuff, that basically by the third batter of the game for the A's in the top of the first inning of that Tuesday game, a bunch of Giants fans got that dude to shut the hell up real quickly. So, and one of the reasons, obviously that I'm happy with how this played out is I'm not going to lie. Both myself and Boss Man did have concerns that this event possibly could backfire. And it has nothing to do with the organization of what the 68s and the dive bar did. They're always on top of things. It's mainly just from mine and Boss's past experiences of going to games in that ballpark, dating back to when it initially opened in 2000. I've had some pretty, unfortunately, crappy fan experiences at Oracle Park over the years, but just a whole bunch of Giants fans that you could tell have either only started rooting for them since that 3 and 5 stuff happened a few years ago, or just became fans of the team because of that ballpark and were not there during the Candlestick years. Trust me, I can tell the difference. I went to Candlestick for a few games the last couple of years it was open, so I could tell the difference between the OGs and the bandwagon, clown yoo-hoos that just want to start shit with A's fans. I was concerned that because of stuff like that, that things would not play out good over there, and I'm glad to see that I was ultimately wrong with that and that they did have success with that. So again, big props to the 68s on doing that, and props to the last dive bar as well, for that matter, on getting that to go down. On that note, let's go ahead and see what went down in the second and final game of this quick little 2-game trip across the bay between your Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. The second and final game of that 2-game series would also be a night game in the city by the bay, and of course would go down at China Basin on Wednesday, July the 26th. As of course, yet again, on my end, I'm waiting for MLB Game Day to load the bloody box score for me. Spoiler alert, and obviously for those of you looking on the screen, first time in a while that the A's obviously and unfortunately took a loss, and it wasn't a close loss that it would end up going down for them. Anyway, in the finale of this 2-game series, the Giants would score first with a 2-run spot to open up things in the bottom half of the first inning. They would add on to that 2-run lead with a single run in the bottom half of the second inning before the A's would finally tie the game up at 3 runs apiece with a 3-run spot in the top of the fourth. Unfortunately for the green and gold, they wouldn't put up Jack Diddley squat on the scoreboard the rest of the way out after that. The Giants, on the other hand, would score 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th and what would be their final 3 runs of the contest in the bottom of the 8th, as the Giants would go on to win this one and, of course, secure the quick little 2-game sweep in San Francisco, defeating the A's by a final score of 8-3. San Francisco, 8 runs, 9 hits, 1 error. Oakland, 3 runs, 8 hits, 1 error in that Wednesday evening contest at Oracle Park. Wood picking up the win for San Francisco as he improved to 5-4 on the year. Harris taking the loss for Oakland as he falls to 2-5 on the year. No home runs for the A's in this one. For the Giants, you had Davis hitting his 13th of the year and Slater hitting his 5th ding-dong doodle of the year as well. So, hey, unfortunately, the green and gold getting swept in the finale of that, getting swept in that series over there. But I would feel, honestly, that as far as things go from the fans' point of view, you got to be happy and satisfied with the way that the things with the Unite the Bay reverse boycott went down. So, yeah, once again, big props and mad support, as always, to the homies at the Oakland 68s, the last dive bar, for putting that on. And they're not done with that, as the whole, what they're now kind of officially dubbing the Summer of Sale tour for these reverse boycotts, they got another one planned to go down yet again. And the next reverse boycott event that will be going down will be Sell the Team Saturday. That'll be going down at the Oakland Coliseum on Saturday, August the 5th. That, of course, will be the first of the 2 games against the Giants here at the Coliseum. So technically 2-2 this year between your A's and the Giants in the Battle of the Bay, just kind of a couple weeks in between that 2-2 set going down. Again, Sell the Team Saturday going down at the Oakland Coliseum on August the 5th. The 68s and Last Dive Bar will be giving away 10,000 of those rally towels that you see right there. And this event, of course, will be put on by the Oakland 68s and the Last Dive Bar. And you will also have 1-2-3-4 Go Records and Royal Retros helping out the cause with those individuals as well. So definitely keep your eyes and ears tuned for more info to come out for things in regards to Sell the Team Saturday on August the 5th at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Once again, fan question reminder time for y'all out there that haven't had a chance to respond to said fan question of the night. If you're one of those that haven't chimed in on that since it went up around 5 p.m. this afternoon, go ahead and make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio right now and submit your responses to tonight's fan question of the night. Just look for the post or tweet that says fan question of the night. Follow the directions on how to submit a response, submit your response, and I, of course, will read off any and all responses during the final segment of tonight's show. Fan question of the night, of course, for show number 341 is, we want to hear your thoughts on how things played out with the Unite the Bay reverse boycott protest at Oracle Park on July the 25th. And hey, if you happen to be one of the individuals that was at that game on this past Tuesday night, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how that bad boy played out across the Bay. Again, to get those responses into that fan question, facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter. Look for the post or tweet that says fan question of the night. Follow the directions on how to submit a response. And of course, I will read off any and all responses for that bad boy during the final segment of tonight's show. We come back, we will go ahead and take a look at what the A's have on tap between now and next Friday's edition of the show, and also the latest roster transactions that have gone down since last time we came at you. I'll be right back at you here in a bit on the Unite the Bay edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. And welcome back as we, as I actually screw up things there with cutting out stuff and not getting a chance to pause music here on this edition of the show. Welcome back to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003, and of course in the midst of our 20th anniversary season on the air, and the 10th anniversary season of the tag team known as the Dynamic Duo, by the way, here on AFR, though of course at this moment in time it's just one half of the Dynamic Duo hosting this bad boy here. It is of course show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of A's Fan Radio. The legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you, of course, from Dub 6 Studios in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Main man, the boss man, might be hitting us up here. May not be. The way kind of things are looking right now, I guess, given that it's almost 9:30 and we're almost an hour in to tonight's broadcast, I'm going to work with the assumption that it might be one of those nights where yours truly will be the lone host on this edition of the show. But I will definitely keep my eyeballs open for any sort of sign of a phone call coming in on the cellular telly to see if Boss Man joins us. If not, then we'll just have to wait and see, of course, if he's able to pop in on us for the next edition of the show, which, by the way, our trade deadline edition of the show, that's going to be the next broadcast, will be going down for us. It will not be taking place next Thursday. It will be taking place next Friday night, and figured with it being an off day next Friday, right before that next edition of the Battle of the Bay series, that we would go ahead and do the show on a night, Friday night. I want to say, I think, even though they're on the road next Thursday, it's a West Coast or close to a West Coast night game. I've got to double check the look. We'll actually find out here in a bit when we preview what the A's have on tap. Might be a night game, but just still we decided to go ahead and do the trade deadline edition of the show next Friday. Alrighty, between now and the next time we come at you here on A's Fan Radio, this is what the A's will have done between now and August the 4th. As, of course, I accidentally click on the damn Dynamic Duo logo again for the third time here in this broadcast. Yeah, errors left and right. It's not spring training anymore, Keith. Come on, you got to make sure you don't do that. Anywho, the A's, of course, between now and the next edition of the show on August the 4th have 6 games that will be going down. They're obviously in the midst of a game right now, I believe, in Colorado. Let me go ahead and refresh things just to go on or see what's going on with that one. The first of a 3-game series going on at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado, right now as we speak, between your Oakland Athletics and the NL West Colorado Rockies. I'm going to check in here real quick just to see what the score is looking like, but I'm going to go ahead and hold off on recapping the what went down in this contest until we do the show next week, just so that way we can keep things set up with a full series as far as things go with the recap. So right now, hey, your A's actually won tonight by a final score of 8-5 to begin that 3-game series. But again, we'll go ahead and wait on recapping things with tonight's game when we do next week's edition of the show. Game 2 of that 3-game series, of course, will be tomorrow, July the 29th, and that, of course, will be a 5:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start for that contest tomorrow. Night game over in Denver, Colorado, and the finale of this 3-game series between your Elephants and I want to say I think their mascot's a Triceratops. At least it used to be. Maybe they've changed it since the last time I've been out that way and since the last time I paid attention to any of that. But the finale of the 3-game series between your Oakland Athletics and the Colorado Rockies will go down at Coors Field on Sunday, July the 30th. And that will be an afternoon game at 12:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A's have already began things in a nice fashion by winning tonight's contest, first game of this 3-game series by a final score of 8-5. Rockies are a team that are obviously struggling out there in the NL West. They're basically the bottom feeder of that NL West division, so maybe this might be an opportunity for a equally, or maybe not as equally, struggling A's squad to maybe get a few wins notched in, maybe get lucky and somehow pull off a sweep. Sweep may be asking for a little much when it comes to these guys, but hey, maybe it's one of those rare times where you can get a series win just because you're playing a team that's kind of a little bit equally as shitty as you are. Again, starting off things on the right foot with an 8-5 victory tonight, and again, we'll recap tonight's victory on next week's edition of the show. And got 2 more games, obviously, to get some little moral victories, I guess, per se, for you, and not just do things for the young guys that you got on your team, but get some wins in front of some Oakland A's fans that have made the trip out there to Colorado for the weekend. Of course, we got a longtime friend in Katie, who lives over in the Denver, Colorado area, and a couple members of the 68s and the left field bleacher crew are out there for that 3-game series this weekend. I want to say apparently there's a Southwest flight attendant that, of course, if you saw things on Twitter, did a whole big, huge announcement when they got into Denver International Airport today. So, yeah, there are A's fans out there, and don't be surprised if you obviously see some Cell shirts out there in Colorado. I think there were actually some folks wearing some Cell shirts tonight, and apparently NBC broadcast put up some ad or something to look like they intentionally blocked that stuff. So, yeah, safe travels, of course, to any of y'all that are making the trip out to Colorado or out in Colorado already. And obviously, safe trips to any of you that will be making the trip down south for the next 3 games that will go down after the A's wrap up things in Colorado, as of course they will have an off day on the final day of July and begin the next 3-game series on the road for them on the first day of August, as they, of course, will begin a 3-game series on a Tuesday night in SoCal as they head to Dodger Stadium to take on the NL West Los Angeles Dodgers. Game 1 of that 3-game series going down, of course, on Tuesday, August the 1st at 7:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Game 2 will be on Wednesday, August the 2nd. That will also be a 7:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start. And the third and final game of that 3-game series between Oaktown and L.A. will go down on Thursday, August the 3rd. And that will also be a 7:10 p.m. start. So I figured, obviously, there was a reason why we weren't doing the show next Thursday night. It's because, hey, all 3 of those games are going to be 7:10 starts. Not going to be surprised if the green and gold ends up getting whooped, beat down, and shellacked across Chavez Ravine during the course of that 3-game series, given you got the Dodgers near the top of the pack right now in the NL West. But all that, again, matters to me really at this point is, of course, knowing that there are going to be A's fans heading down there, rocking Cell shirts, trying to get the Sell the Team chants going on, and I hope to see, obviously, some Dodger fans join in on those shenanigans with our fellow A's fans as well, and continuing to spread the message across MLB that, again, unjustified relocation. I'd love to see it at the point where, regardless if it's at home or any of the stadiums that the A's visit the rest of the way out, that they feel the heat, they'll sell the team chance and still see those sell shirts out there in the crowd. Again, 3-game series against the Dodgers, the 1st through the 3rd of August, all 3 of those games starting at 7:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, of course, this upcoming Saturday and Sunday, the A's will wrap up the final 2 games of a 3-game series that's already gotten underway in Colorado against the Rockies, with them, of course, taking the first game of that 3-game series earlier tonight, just wrapping up a while ago, winning by a final score of 8-5. But again, I will hold off on recapping things with tonight's game when we do next week's edition of the show. On that note, obviously, this would be the point in time where if Boss were here, Boss would be doing his final thoughts of the evening before punching out to give me control of things for the back half of the show. But again, looks like it's going to be one of those nights where Boss Man will not be joining me, and y'all will just be dealing with me solo for this edition of the broadcast. So instead of obviously Boss Man's final thoughts, it means we'll jump right into the most recent roster transactions for your Oakland Athletics since the last time we came at you here on the show. Of course, we'll go off and begin things with moves beginning on July the 21st when the A's signed left-handed pitcher Diogo Barra, right-handed pitcher Ryan Brown, and those were the 2 moves that they would make. I want to say I believe those are a couple of their draft picks that they signed to contracts right there. 22nd of July, they selected the contract of right-handed pitcher Chad Smith from the Las Vegas Aviators and placed right-handed pitcher Angel Felipe on the paternity list. On July the 23rd, they sent catcher Manny Pena on a rehab assignment to the Single-A Stockton Ports. The 24th, the A's optioned third baseman Jonah Bride to the Triple-A Las Vegas Aviators. And then their most recent moves going down 3 days ago on the 25th as they made 3 moves on July the 25th, optioning right-handed pitcher Chad Smith back to AAA Las Vegas, activating center fielder Ramon Lariano from the 10-day IL, and of course also activating right-handed pitcher Angel Felipe from the paternity list on July the 25th. And those are your most recent roster transactions since our last broadcast for your Oakland Athletics, which means, hey, it is finally time for the 7th inning stretch midway break here on this Unite the Bay edition of AFR. But before we take our midway break, we want to go ahead and once again remind y'all that there is a fan question of the night sitting out there for all of y'all to chime in on if you haven't yet done so yet. And if you haven't chimed in on that bad boy yet, go ahead and make your way over to either Facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter and submit a response to tonight's fan question of the night. Just look for the post or tweet that says fan question of the night. Follow the directions on how to submit a response. Submit your response, and yours truly, of course, will read off all of those responses during the final segment of tonight's show. For tonight's fan question of the night, we want to hear your thoughts on how the Unite the Bay reverse boycott played out on July the 25th. And if you happen to be in attendance for that game on the 25th, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how that all went down. And again, you can get in responses to that by looking for the fan question of the night post or tweets on either Facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter. Go ahead and go get a cold one. Fire up that medical research. Go fire up a stogie, whatever the hell you do at this point in time. It is 7th inning stretch time here on A's Fan Radio. We come back at you for the infamous X-rated second half of the show. We'll take a look at the current standings around Major League Baseball, see what's been going on with the FIFA Women's World Cup up to this point, and also, of course, check in with what the Oakland Roots have been up to since our last show. And, of course, before it's all said and done, read off y'all's responses to tonight's fan question of the night. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland, for now, Athletics, A's Fan Radio. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you might be tuning in from in Oaktown, East Bay, the Greater Bay Area, and beyond. Welcome back to what we historically refer to on this broadcast as the infamous X-rated second half of AFR. Used to be originally that we saved this back half of the show for all the various profanity, cuss words, and obscenities that we would use. Try not to cuss in the first half of the show. Obviously, during the last decade that this bad boy has been running things, because of the various language that myself, the boss man, and others have sometimes used, we can quote-unquote turn the whole thing into a X-rated broadcast. I guess you can say on that point of term and phraseology, but yeah, this back half of the show has always historically been referred to as the X-rated second half of your number one source for everything and anything under Oakland, for now, athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003, in the midst of our 20th anniversary season on the air. Hopefully it's not our 20th and final season on the air, but of course, obviously, if the relocation of the A's to Vegas is approved, that's it. We're done. We ain't supporting them in Vegas. Fuck that. But for right now, we obviously sit here and hope that John Fisher finds a way to fuck things up like he always has since he's been running the A's for the last almost 2 decades, and something goes down that allows Howard Terminal to end up happening instead, and the A's stay here. But yeah, 20th anniversary season of A's Fan Radio continues on down the road with our 341st broadcast since yours truly brought the show back from a 4-year hiatus back in 2011, and it is, of course, because of what went down in San Francisco on Tuesday, July the 25th. It's not the Battle of the Bay edition of the show like it normally has been in the past. It is, of course, instead the Unite the Bay edition of AFR. Let's go ahead and kick off things here in the infamous X-rated second half of tonight's show by doing things like we always do usually during the season to begin things in the X-rated second half of the show, and that's taking a look at the current standings right here, right now, around MLB at this point in time. Yeah, I know, a horrible job of singing right here, right now, but hey, damn it, Jim, I'm a broadcaster, not a vocalization expert and singer. Anyway, yeah, current standings at this point in time around Major League Baseball. We, of course, start off in the American League because your Oakland Athletics, of course, are a charter member of the AL when it started off back in 1901. And as always, we start off in the A's division with the current standings in the American League West. It's the other Texas team is on top. I almost said the Astros, but I would be incorrect with that. It's the Texas Rangers that are on top of the AL West at this point in time with a record of 60-43. 2.5 game lead only, though, right now over their Texas counterparts in the Houston Astros, who, of course, just got done taking 3 out of 4 recently against our Oakland Athletics out here at the Coliseum. Houston, of course, in the second place spot, 2.5 games back of the Rangers right now at 58-46. The Anaheim Angels still in the middle of the division pack, 4 games out of a wild card spot at this point in time. Their record currently is 54-50. The Seattle Mariners are sitting at 53-50. 4.5 games out. So you got 4 teams kind of in the division that right now look like that they could be trying to jockey for some possible playoff contention the rest of the way out. Only team, of course, in the division that is nowhere near having any sort of possibility of going to the playoffs, and not shocking given their play on the field the last year and a half. Last place, of course, in the AL West at 29-76. Worst record in the AL, and I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, worst record in all of baseball belonging to mine, our Oakland, for now, Athletics. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what the rest of the standings look like around the rest of the American League at this point in time. Over in the AL East, you got the Baltimore Orioles on top still with a record of 63-40. The Tampa Bay Rays, who had been on top of the division for the most part in the early goings of the season, are only a game and a half back of the O's right now. The Rays currently sitting at 63-43 in that second place spot in the AL East. The Toronto Blue Jays are third right now with a record of 58-46. The Boston Red Sox are fourth with a record of 56-47. And the New York Yankees are in the last place spot at 54-49, though they're 3.5 games out in the wild card race. Boston's a game and a half out right now at this point in time. One of those divisions where basically you have all 5 teams above 500 at this point in time, and all 5 teams pretty much jockeying for playoff position at this point in time in the AL East. Obviously, though, probably not the case over in the AL Central. The AL Central has been straight dookie booty so far in 2023. Still kind of the case, though. You do have two teams at or above 500. You had points where it was only one team above 500, and I think there was even a time where the entire division was under 500 at one point. But yeah, two teams either at or above 500 in the Dookie Booty AL Central right now. It's the Minnesota Twins on top of the division with a record of 54-51. The Cleveland Guardians are the second place team right now, and they're an even 500 at 52-52. Dookie Booty the rest of the way out as the Detroit Tigers are third with a record of 46-58. The Chicago White Sox are fourth with a record of 42-63. And the current second worst record in the American League belonging to the last place team in the AL Central, who's in the midst of trying to get a downtown ballpark built, by the way, now over in Kansas City, that being the Royals in the last place spot in the Dookie Booty AL Central, the record of 30-75. Man. Anybody over there want that Central Division? Are the Twinkies going to somehow be able to pad things up at some point? Is Cleveland, who kind of, potentially might be, just made a trade recently, kind of, sitting there at 500, don't know if they're really leaning towards, trying to compete for the division or not. 6 games out of the wild card race at this point in time. Are they going to fall off? Don't really see anybody else in that division trying to make any sort of noise. So just, going to be really interesting to see how that butthole of a division plays out the rest of the way out. Interesting, though, to see that pretty much in the other two divisions you have basically all but the A's in the West, jockeying for playoff position and whatnot. And then at this point in time, it's still the entire East is in the mix for things like that. Obviously, some people out there, I'm pretty sure you all heard the news by now that even though there was some out there that was expecting he was going to get dealt either before or at the trade deadline, Shohei Ohtani will not be dealt by the Anaheim Angels. He's obviously a potential free agent at the end of this upcoming season. Anaheim choosing to hold on to him. And the reality is, regardless of how I might personally feel about the Anaheim Angels, or as my counterpart has liked to always refer to him as the Anaheim Devils, why would you trade a guy like that when you're 4 games out in the wild card race at this point in time? You're not going to deal a guy like that. In fact, again, regardless of how I feel about Anaheim, if I'm in their shoes, I'm trying to bring in guys to make a push for that wild card spot, and maybe even, at 6.5 games back of Texas right now, maybe try to somehow make some moves that can maybe affect things in the divisional race at this point in time. To me, it made no sense to trade a talent like that. And I'm sorry if anyone out there thought that Shohei was going to get traded. I'm sorry, you were smoking rock. Squirrel, cut that out! Yeah, you were on some drugs if you really thought that he was going to be dealt. Now, is he still going to be in Anaheim after this offseason? That's for, things to be discussed and talked about when it gets to that point in time. We'll have to see what happens with that. The talk's always been that Shohei would prefer to stay out here on the West Coast, but my longtime former roommate, who's a lifelong Yankee fan, will already talking about, we could throw a boatload of money at him and lock him up long term, so it'll be interesting to really see what happens with that. But yeah, I don't blame the Angels for not wanting to deal Shohei, and especially given the fact that he's currently trying to pay, basically is pacing that home run record that Aaron Judge set out there last year, and also dominating as a starting pitcher too. No point to do that. Don't blame the Angels for not doing that. It'll be real interesting to see what they do between now and the trade deadline on the 1st to see if they pad anything to help him out. And obviously, given how much teams, in the AL are still in a position to try to compete for that, if they're going to be able to get any sort of, talent from out there to pad that. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how things ultimately play out as the weeks come on by here on the AL side, and even in the case as well for things over in the senior circuit as well. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the current standings over in the National League. We'll, of course, begin things on the NL side with the standings over in the NL East, where the Atlanta Braves who've pretty much been there for the majority of the season, still sitting on top with a record of 65-36. The Philadelphia Phillies are in that second spot in the East with a record of 56-47. The Miami Marlins are in third at 56-48. The New York Mets are in fourth with a record of 49-54. And the Washington Nationals are in the last place spot in the East with a record of 43-61. NL Central currently as follows. It's the Milwaukee Brewers in the first place spot with a record of 57-47. The Cincinnati Reds are one game back of them right now in second with a record of 56-48. The Chicago Cubs are in the middle of the pack and are a game above 500 at the moment. So, hey, you actually got three teams above 500 in the Central Division on the NL side. The Cubbies currently are at 52-51. The St. Louis Cardinals, who are having a very un-St. Louis Cardinal-like season, are in fourth with a record of 46-59. And the last place team in the Central was a team that started straight up hot like smoldering fire to begin the season and just fizzled the hell out relatively quickly and are now all the way back down at the opposite end of the spectrum in the division, that being the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are in last place in the Central with a record of 45-58. And finally, to close out the NL standings and the standings overall on tonight's edition of the show, this is what it's looking like right now and what I have referred to the last several seasons as the Wild, Wild NL West. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers on top currently with a record of 58-43. The San Francisco Giants are now in the second place spot of the division with a record of 56-48. They're 3.5 games back of LA. The Arizona Diamondbacks, who actually were on top of the division for a hefty amount of time, looks like maybe things kind of cooling off with them. Not too bad. They're at 55-49 in the third place spot in the division, 4.5 games back of the Dodgers right now. San Diego Padres still cannot figure things out, even with all the moves that they've made in the offseason, as they're in fourth place with a record of 49-54. And the last place team in the NL West is the team that your Oakland Athletics just beat earlier tonight by a score of 8-5, and of course will play against the A's over the course of the next 2 days this weekend. That being the Colorado Rockies, last in the NL West with a record of 40-63. Nice little three-team race over in the Wild Wild NL West. Going to be real interesting to see if San Diego can ever wake the hell up and turn it into a four-team race and try to make some noise, or if they're going to just flounder the rest of the way out. People waiting to see if they're going to be trading off any pieces between now and the August 1st deadline, or if they're going to try to hold on to some guys that, are potential free agents at the end of this season, try to do something to push things out the rest of the way and lock up those guys. It'd definitely be real interesting to see how things go out if the Dodgers maintain that lead, if the Giants can somehow factor into that at all for, any of our homies out there that are unfortunately fans of that team across the bay, and if the Diamondbacks can somehow heat back up again, or if they're on the verge of possibly fizzling out. Central Division, to me, I don't. The Cubs are 4.5 games back of the Brewers right now. I don't really see them really factoring into things. You never know. They're 3.5 games back, and they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. So, hey, maybe the Cubbies are about to turn a corner here, but I still feel like ultimately it's Milwaukee's division to lose at this point, and if anyone is going to challenge them, it's going to be Cincinnati. St. Louis, going to be real interesting to see if they're going to be selling off anything either at the major league level or even from down on the farm as the deadline approaches, and just very unfortunate for Pittsburgh, man. You thought maybe with the way they started that maybe this was going to be a year where they actually did some stuff and brought some joy to the city of Pittsburgh. Again, that's how it was looking at the beginning, and they just downward spiral into the ground the rest of the way out. So just, very unfortunate for them. And, basically, again, over in the East, it's teams conducting business as usual and just, a shocker, seeing the same thing basically plaguing the Mets that's plaguing the Padres down in San Diego. But, even with the way those two teams are playing, I'm not going to sit here and criticize those teams for the money that they spent on players in the offseason because, again, people out there that like to joke about that and make fun about that, you're the individuals that unfortunately have gotten played by Moneyball in the last 2 decades. Owners should spend money to compete for championships and not be like jackasses like John Fisher when it comes to that. But as always, it'll be really interesting to see how all these races play out, if things are still this way as the season progresses, or if maybe one of these bottom feeders that's obviously not the Oakland Athletics somehow randomly catches fire and throws a monkey wrench into all sorts of things and shocks everybody. But yeah, still got a decent amount of time to go here, folks. We basically got still a little 2 months to go before we see how things will ultimately shape up with the postseason action. And that concludes this week's edition of the current MLB standings here on A's Fan Radio. Reminder yet again that there is a fan question of the night sitting out there if any of y'all haven't had a chance to chime in on that bad boy yet. And if you haven't yet, Facebook.com/A's Fan Radio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter is where you can find that fan question of the night. Just look for the post or tweets that say fan question of the night. Follow directions on how to submit responses to that fan question of the night. Submit your responses. I will read off all those responses during the final segment of tonight's show. Fan question of the night, of course, for show number 341 is, we want to hear your thoughts on how the reverse boycott that was dubbed Unite the Bay played out at Oracle Park on July the 25th. And, of course, if you happen to be in attendance at that game, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how that whole night played out. Again, to get in a response to that fan question of the night, head over to either Facebook.com/A's Fan Radio or at A's_fan_radio and look for the post or tweets that say fan question of the night. We come back, it's time for some Women's World Cup talk as we take a look at how things have played out since the tournament started on July the 20th and what is on tap between now and when we come at you again on August the 4th. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on the Unite the Bay edition of A's Fan Radio. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003, and of course, our 20th anniversary season on the air. Of course, we've been over here on Twitch for the last couple of years and a whole bunch of various other programmings and streaming formats and whatnots in the years preceding that. And of course, the last couple of years, we also been putting things up on the YouTube channel as well. Show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of A's Fan Radio, continues on here on this Friday night in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, by the way, coming at you from Dub 6 Studios in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Third version of Dub 6 Studios since I took over producing A's Fan Radio in 2011. And ends up being a night where this crazy 5150 Marine hosts this show solo, as Bossman was unable to join me for tonight's edition of the broadcast. Hopefully he's able to join us when we come at everyone again for the next edition of the show. And in case you missed out on things, we will not be broadcasting next Thursday night because the A's will be playing a night game against Dodgers down in L.A. next Thursday. The trade deadline edition of A's Fan Radio will be coming at y'all next Friday night, August the 4th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on twitch.tv/A's Fan Radio. All right, let's go ahead and do some soccer talk here to begin things here on this segment of tonight's show. We obviously will have the Oaktown soccer segment coming up during the final portion of tonight's broadcast, but we also got international women's soccer going down right now, as of course been happening since July the 20th, and I could have actually started off with things with that on the last show we did, but decided to hold off on it until this broadcast went down. So we're going to go ahead and take a look back at what's went down from July 20th through now and what's ahead between now and August the 4th with the FIFA Women's World Cup, which of course is being played down in Australia and New Zealand this year. Again, we'll begin back with things on July the 20th, which was a Thursday. They're currently, of course, in the group stage portion of things in the 2023 FIFA World Cup. Let's see here. You had 4 group stage games go down to begin the tournament on Thursday, July the 20th. You had New Zealand defeat Norway by a final score of 1-0. Host country Australia defeating the Republic of Ireland by a score of 1-0. Nigeria and Canada playing to a null draw, 0-0. Neither team able to get a score, so ended up with a draw in that one. Switzerland, of course, in the final game on the 20th, defeating the Philippines by a final score of 2-0. On July the 21st, you only had 2 matches going down. Spain defeating Costa Rica in the first of those 2 games on the 21st of July by a final of 3-0. And Team USA picking up a victory as well in the second and final game of group stage play on Friday, July the 21st, as they would beat Vietnam in their contest by a final of 3-0. Saturday, July the 22nd, would see 4 games go down in group stage play as Japan would beat Zimbabwe in blowout shutout fashion, as Japan would win that contest by a score of 5-0. England would beat Haiti in their contest by a score of 1-0. Denmark defeating China by a score of 1-0. And in the final game of play on July the 22nd would see Sweden defeat South Africa by a final score of 2-1. 3 contests going down on Sunday, July the 23rd, in which the Netherlands would defeat my ancestral homeland of Portugal in shutout fashion, 1-0. France and Jamaica would play to a 0-0 draw in their match, and then Italy would shut out Argentina in their contest on the 23rd by a final score of 1-0. The 4 games on Monday, July the 24th would play out as follows. Germany would blow out Morocco by a final score of 6-0. Brazil shutting out Panama 4-0 in their match. Colombia shutting out South Korea 2-0 in their match. And then you had Philippines shutting out New Zealand, who is co-hosting this tournament with Australia in their match. Philippines shutting out New Zealand in the final game on the 24th, this past Monday, 1-0. 2 games going down in group stage on Tuesday, July the 25th. You would see Switzerland and Norway play to a 0-0 draw, and Japan shutting out Costa Rica in their match by a final score of 2-0. 3 games going down on Wednesday, July the 23rd, as Spain would beat Zambia. I'm assuming it's Zambia. Spain blowing them out 5-0 in their match. Canada defeating the Republic of Ireland 2-1 in their match. And the United States and Netherlands playing to a 1-1 draw in the final game that went down on Wednesday, July the 23rd. 3 contests going down yesterday down there at the FIFA Women's World Cup, as my ancestral homeland of Portugal shut out Vietnam yesterday by a score of 2-0. Nigeria defeating co-host country Australia by a score of 3-2, and then you had Argentina and South Africa play to 2-2 draws. 2 matches going down today that have obviously wrapped up already. You had England shut out Denmark by a final of 1-0, and then China shutting out Haiti in their match by a score of 1-0 as well. Upcoming matches between now and the next edition of A's Fan Radio on August the 4th down at the FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. You'll have 4 matches going on tomorrow as the group stage play continues. You'll have Sweden versus Italy at 12:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. France taking on Brazil at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Panama versus Jamaica at 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the final match that will go down tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time will be South Korea taking on Morocco. Sunday, July the 30th, we'll see 3 contests go down as Norway and the Philippines will face off at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Switzerland and New Zealand will also face off at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as well. And then you'll have Germany and Colombia square off at 2:30 a.m. to close out things on July the 30th. Monday the 31st will be as follows. First game of the day being between Japan and Spain at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Costa Rica and Zambia taking on each other also at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Republic of Ireland and Nigeria will face off at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then Canada will take on co-host Australia to end things on the 31st at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Group play will continue on August the 1st as Vietnam will take on the Netherlands at 12 a.m. Portugal and the U.S. will also face off at 12 a.m. China and England will square off at 4 a.m. And also taking place at 4 a.m. will be a match between Haiti and Denmark. Wednesday, the 2nd of August, we'll see Argentina and Sweden square off at 12 a.m. South Africa and Italy face off at 12 a.m. Panama and France will go off against each other at 3 a.m. And you'll also have Jamaica and Brazil taking on each other at 3 p.m. to close out things on August the 2nd. 2 matches to go down on August the 3rd, and they'll be the final matches of group play going down on the 3rd of August, as Morocco will take on Colombia at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and South Korea will face off against Germany at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as well. And we will have to wait and see how things will be playing out with the round of 16. That, of course, will begin on Friday, August the 4th. And that match is to be determined. So I guess we'll find out what went down with that match when we come at you with the next edition of A's Fan Radio. And that, for now, wraps up things with the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup on this edition of the show. Again, we'll see what happens with the Women's World Cup when we come back at you for the next edition of AFR next Friday night. Which, of course, means, hey, it is the final reminder of the fan question of the night here on this edition of A's Fan Radio. So if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, you better go ahead and hurry up and make your way over to either Facebook.com/A's Fan Radio or at A's_fan_radio right now, because once I get done talking Oakland Roots Sports Club soccer football action, I will be making my way over to our show's Facebook and Twitter pages to read off any of the responses to the fan question of the night y'all happen to throw our way. So again, haven't had a chance to get that response, and since those posts went up at roughly 5 p.m. this afternoon, go ahead and make your way over to either Facebook.com/A's Fan Radio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter. Look for the poster tweet that says Fan Question of the Night. Follow the directions to submit your response to the fan question of the night, and I, of course, will read off all of your responses during the final segment of tonight's show. Fan question, of course, being, we want to hear your thoughts on how things played out with the Unite the Bay reverse boycott in San Francisco on July the 25th. And hey, if you happen to be one of those that were in attendance for that game on Tuesday, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how things played out. Oaktown soccer segment, your responses to the fan question of the night, and of course, my final thoughts of the night to soon come your way on the upcoming final segment of the night here on show number 341, the Unite the Bay edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be tuning in from tonight, it's time to go ahead and get things wrapped up, ready to roll on out, and get this final segment of this Unite the Bay edition of AFR rolled out and under your way, which means, hey, final reminder that if you haven't gotten in a response yet, or the final unofficial reminder, get your damn responses into the fan question of the night, because as soon as I get done talking Oakland Roots action here, I'm going to go ahead and get into doing those responses to the fan question of the night. And for anyone, by the way, that's wondering why the piece of music that we're using for the final break on tonight's edition of the show happens to be the old theme for Gangrel and the Brood from back during the Attitude Era of what I still call the WWF. I refuse to call it what it's called now. To me, it will always be the World Wrestling Federation. But the reason why I decided to use Gangrel's theme for the final break of tonight's show is, if you didn't happen to catch it on Twitter last week, Gangrel shared a picture of himself rocking an A's hat and a Cell shirt. So yeah, the fangin' and bangin' vampire, the Gangrel, is down with the Cell movement. And damn, I meant to actually pull up that picture and use it for when we did the the things with the final break there, but I guess that was the one thing I did forget to do with this edition of the show, so my bad on that. But yeah, if y'all didn't know that, yeah, Gangrel sharing a picture of himself on Twitter rocking the Cell shirt. So, yeah, appreciate that, man. I always thought that the Brood had one of the most underrated pieces of intro music, by the way, during the Attitude Era, and I always felt like the Brood were an underrated wrestling stable as well. It basically consisted of Gangrel, and Edge and Christian when they first came onto the scene in the WWF. And Gangrel still wrestles to this day, by the way, for any of y'all out there that didn't know that. He's kind of more on the independent wrestling scene at this point in time. But, yeah, he still bounces around the country and the globe and wrestles in various indie promotions. He's wrestled at Hood Slam, in fact, several times. I've seen him wrestle at Hood Slam a couple times over the years. And great, cool individual, man. Chopped it up with him for a bit. And, got to have to find out if he actually is an Oakland Athletics fan or just because he happens to know some of my homeboys that I know out there in the wrestling fandom community here in the Bay Area, if he just got that because of that. But one way or another, appreciate you, Gangrel, for doing that. And welcome to the Resistance to help keep the A's in Oakland. On that note, let's go ahead and get the Oaktown soccer segment underway as we get ready to close up shop here with this final segment of tonight's edition of A's Fan Radio and check in on what your Oakland Roots Sports Club have been up to since the last time we came on the show, and of course what they have on tap between now and the next time we come at you here on AFR with the trade deadline edition of the show next Thursday night. Or not next Thursday night, my bad, next Friday night, as my damn nose is getting all runny and whatnot. First of the recap games we have on tap here was a road match that your Oakland Roots partook in back on Saturday, July the 22nd, as they headed out to El Paso to take on the El Paso Locomotive FC. Contest that would be an easy victory and an easy 3-point pickup for the Roots in that one, as they would defeat the El Paso Locomotive by a final score of 3-1 on the road. They would come back for a home matchup a couple days ago on Wednesday, July the 26th, against the team that is basically the doormat of the Western Conference of the USL Championship this season. And it's funny that they're the doormat because they play in a city that, according to Steve Yeager, who's one of the assembly members who approved that bullshit SB1 bill to give John Fisher and the A's $380 million in taxpayer money for a stadium that nobody knows what the hell it's going to look like, if it's going to even be built. For a city that, according to Steve Yeager, does not tolerate losing, why are the Las Vegas Lights utter garbage? What's the excuse for that this year? And just, again, given the circumstances, it's nice to see an Oakland team defeat a Las Vegas team, regardless of what league it's in. Your Oakland Roots getting a win over the Las Vegas Lights this past Wednesday over at the stadium at Cal State East Bay, as they defeat the Lights in that contest by a score of 1-0. Upcoming matches for your Oakland Roots Sports Club. They technically have 2 on the schedule here, but I only put up the upcoming matchup for one of those 2 because one of those 2 games will be going down. Will actually be the same day that we come at you here with the show, so I forgot to include one of those matchups in there. But the one I did include in there is their next upcoming home game, which is tomorrow night, Saturday, July the 29th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over there at the Cal State East Bay Soccer Stadium in Hayward, California. They'll be taking on a team that they have some familiarity with, and a squad that they faced off, of course, against when the Roots first came on the scene as part of the NISA League several years ago. And this is a team I want to say they actually took on in the championship game in NISC, or in that league many years ago, and they got defeated by them, that, of course, being the Detroit City FC. So 2 squads here that have some history between each other, not just in the USL, but dating back to the NISA days for these 2 squads as well. Oakland Roots SC, Detroit City FC, facing off at Cal State East Bay in Hayward tomorrow night, July the 29th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Keek the Sneak, I believe, is performing a pre-game concert out there. And for those of you wondering, the reason why the Roots have been playing at Cal State East Bay this year is because, unfortunately, due to things being changed and redone with the football field at Laney College, the Roots' temporary soccer turf just would not stabilize on that field. So they're, of course, playing the remainder of this season over at Cal State East Bay, trying to, of course, get things sped up and done with getting that temporary venue built in what used to be the site of the Malibu Grand Prix over by the Coliseum. And there's even talk of them maybe building a temporary stadium before the temporary stadium out in the Coliseum parking lot, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously, what happens with that. The Roots also, since I forgot to included here on things tonight, the Roots will actually be playing a road game on August the 4th, which, of course, is the next day we come at you with A's Fan Radio. That game, of course, will be going on at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. That's because they're on the road in Charleston, taking on the Charleston Battery. 2 games for the Roots between now and next Thursday. They'll have a home game, of course, against Detroit City FC tomorrow night at 7 p.m., and then a road matchup against the Charleston Battery at 4:30 p.m. on August the 4th. Let's go ahead now and take a look at what the current standings are in the Western Conference of the USL Championship. You kind of already got an idea of who the doormat team is in the conference. It's obviously that the last place team is the Las Vegas Golden Light, or the Las Vegas, I almost called them a team name there. I got confused with the hockey team. The Las Vegas Lights, of course, being the last place team. So, Las Vegas. I thought y'all didn't tolerate losing. If that's the case, what's the excuse for the Lights this year, and what's the excuse for the entire history of UNLV football if Las Vegas doesn't tolerate losing, as Steve Yeager would leave us all to supposedly believe? Oh, boy. Anyway, current standings as of right now in the Western Conference of USL Championship. Sacramento Republic FC is in the top spot right now with a record of 10-3-8 for a total of 38 points. San Antonio FC is in the second spot with a record of 9-4-7 for 34 points. Your Oakland Roots have moved up to third place in the Western Conference of USL Championship. The Roots at this point in time have a record of 9-6-6 for a total of 33 points. El Paso Locomotive is in fourth with a record of 9-6-5 for 32 points. San Diego Loyal is fifth with a record of 8-5-6 for a total of 30 points. Colorado Springs Switchback is in the sixth position with a record of 9-10 and 9-10-2 for a total of 29 points. And then you have New Mexico United and Orange County SC tied in seventh right now, so they would technically hold the last 2 playoff spots if the season were to end today. New Mexico United currently is the top team with technically in the 7th spot, even though both New Mexico United and Orange County SC have 28 points. New Mexico United is 8-7-4 with 28 points, and Orange County SC is 8-9-4 with 28 points. So technically tied for 7th, but the Orange County SC have that 8th and final playoff position spot locked up at this point in time. If the season, of course, were to end right now, they still have at least another couple of months left to go. I want to say the USL regular season doesn't even end until like the beginning of October. So, yeah, still plenty of time for things to change up with that. The teams on the outside looking in right now in the 9th place spot is co-host Dan O'Wolfe's Monterey Bay Club. They're currently 7-8-6 with for a total of 27 points. Phoenix Rising FC, who, by the way, is owned by co-owned, I should say, by former Oakland Athletics pitcher Brandon McCarthy, who, of course, has highly encouraged fans of the A's that if the A's end up leaving, they should start supporting and rooting for the Oakland Roots. Phoenix Rising currently is in the 10th spot with a record of 6-6-8 for a total of 26 points. Rio Grande Valley FC is in 11th with a record of 5-6-9 for 24 points. And, of course, as I already mentioned, the team playing in the city that apparently, according to Stephen Yeager, does not tolerate losing. That apparently isn't the case, since Las Vegas Lights are in last place in the conference with a record of 1-11-8 for a total of 11 points. Of course, any of you out there, if you don't have memberships to the Oakland Roots, go ahead and take advantage. Go and get them now. OaklandRootsSC.com/memberships to get membership packages for the remainder of the 2023 season. Your Oakland Roots currently in 3rd place. Again, still got plenty of season to go before it's all said and done, but definitely liking what I'm seeing right now. It's definitely a lot better than how things were last year when your Oakland Roots seemed to be the tying team for the majority of games during the 2022 season. 3rd place, hey, definitely liking that a whole lot better than what it was at this point in time last year. Let's definitely, of course, see if the boys make up the Roots squad are able to continue that and right into the postseason with a higher seeded spot this time around instead of having to rely on some late season magic to lock in one of those lower seeded playoff spots. But again, Oakland Roots currently in third place in the Western Conference of the USL and have 2 games going down between now and the next time we come at you here on A's Fan Radio. On that note, hey, if you haven't had a chance to chime in and respond to it yet, as Ballistic Bill would say if he were here joining us for this edition of the show, guess what? Time is up, bitch! Time to go ahead and read off any and all responses that y'all yahoos happen to throw our way in regards to the responding to the fan question of the night for this edition of A's Fan Radio. Obviously, if you somehow didn't get a chance to chime in and respond to the fan question of the night for this edition of the show, hey, don't sweat it. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just save that energy and keep your eyes open next Friday around 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when, of course, we put up the fan question of the night for next week's edition of the show. Alrighty, fan question of the night, of course, for tonight's edition of the show was we wanted to hear your thoughts on how Unite the Bay played out on July the 25th, and then obviously if you attended that game, that we wanted to hear your thoughts as well. No responses, unfortunately, to the fan question tonight. It looks like over on Twitter. I'm going to check to see, obviously, if any of the quote posts had any sort of responses to them. No responses to the fan. Yeah, it's looking right now. No responses to the fan question tonight over on our Facebook page. I'm checking to see right now if there was any responses to that over on our. Or excuse me, there were no responses to it over on the Twitter page, and it looks like no responses to it either on the Facebook page as well. Well, it happens sometimes, no biggie. Obviously, though, from anyone that saw things out on Twitter, everyone that was over there experiencing and taking part in that Unite the Bay protest were basically putting out everything on social media and Twitter. So, hey, it is what it is. Obviously, no one chiming in for this week's fan question of the night. So, hey, y'all have an opportunity to obviously do that again on next week's edition of the show. Again, as always, for the latest information pertaining to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, be sure to check us out at aysfanradio.com. Like/follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aysfanradio. Follow us on what's being called X now, apparently, but for any of us out there, we're going to still most likely refer to it as the Bird app, as Twitter. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at A's_fan_radio. And, of course, be sure to check out any past editions of the show you might have missed and more over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/A'sFanRadio. And, of course, be sure to tune in next week when we come at you with show number 342, the 2023 trade deadline edition of AFR. That'll, of course, be going down on a Friday next week with the A's playing a night game in L.A. next Thursday night. Trade deadline edition of A's Fan Radio will be going down on Friday, August the 4th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on twitch.tv/A's Fan Radio. That means, hey, final thought time here on AFR, and the only final thought coming at you here on this edition of the show, since yours truly was the only one to end up hosting things here on this broadcast tonight. Again, as always, thank you to everybody that tunes in week in and week out here on AFR. Thanks for being a part of our 20th anniversary season on the air, regardless if you're new to following the show, you've been following since I brought the show back in 2011, or if you're amongst those that have been following since day bloody one back in 2003, over 20 years ago, when Dobbins and company and me initially as a guest host that first year and then joining the cast permanently during year 2 of the show. If you've been following us for the entire 2 decades we've been coming at you, hey, thank you. We love y'all. We always continue to appreciate y'all and out that. People, could we please start doing a better job of driving out there on these bloody California roads? Part of the reason why my back ended up acting up last night, I figured I'd save it for the final thought. Myself, my wife, and my former roommate, as we were coming back from picking her up from her job in Berkeley, almost got in a wreck on 580 because some jackass in front of us in our lane, just out of the blue, stopped on 580. Who does that? Who stops on a freeway. Didn't look like there was anything ahead of him to cause that. Just dude stops in the middle of nowhere. And luckily, my former roommate who has bars when it comes to driving, was able to avoid the things. We obviously didn't make it home in one piece, but just that whole jerking motion is what threw things off with my back and whatnot and caused things last night. Just, again, it's real ridiculous just how some of the folks out there drive. So, do a better job, man. Be aware of those out there. And obviously all of you out there, be aware of things on the road. And as we would say in safety briefs when I was in the Marine Corps, be on the lookout for stupid, especially even more so it seems like here nowadays in the Bay Area. And one other thing as well, regardless of who your affiliation is and who you support out there politically, be it a Democrat or Republican, I got to be real. Given what happened this week with Mitch McConnell, I don't know about the rest of y'all out there, but to me looked like he either had a seizure or possibly had a stroke in front of all of us when he just sat there and stopped for 20 minutes. Just, again, it's another proof and sign of we're at a point in time where we might need term limits and we might need age limits when it comes to individuals that are voted on to run our country. And again, that goes for both sides of the aisle. That goes both for Democrats and Republicans. We really need to look at the possibility of term limits and age limits. So you just, no disrespect, man. I really feel that we're at a point in time where somebody that's 80 plus years old shouldn't be in a position of power when it comes to things in our government. We need to start looking for, younger individuals to be doing that. And again, just starting to put limits on that thing. So yeah, just was crazy seeing that whole thing go down. And of course, thanks to everybody, by the way, that stopped out at 88th and East 14th today as kind of a last-minute thing. Forever Oakland going out there and being part of a little event that Councilmember Treva Reeve was putting on in her district. Got to go out there and connect with various groups and whatnot that are doing stuff to help improve things around Oakland, and even reconnected with some individuals that have helped out with things with Forever Oakland in the past that we haven't seen in a while, and hopefully we'll get out with making things and getting back to how the group was going forward, because we're kind of still in a little bit of a rebuild process, unfortunately recovering from everything that's gone down in the last year since Grizz passed away. But it was great to be a part of that today and re-link up with some individuals and meet some new individuals as well that will try to become a part of things and help us out with stuff with Forever Oakland going forward. On that note, as always, on behalf of the cast here at A's Fan Radio, this is the Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown. Y'all take care and enjoy what is left of your Friday night. The views and opinions of our cast, our guests, and our listeners are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the Oakland Athletics or Major League Baseball. Good night, Walter Haas. Good night, King Al. Your son still forever is a punk-ass bitch for moving the football team out there to the desert, and I hope you strike him down and cause that brand to get brought back to Oakland somehow, some way, one day. Good night, Chesty Puller, wherever you may be, looking over the souls of the Marines past, present, and those dumb enough to become part of Uncle Sam's misguided children in the future. Good night, Auntie Di-Di. Love you and miss you. Good night, Godfather Grizz Jones. Love you and miss you as well. Hope you're partying up there at the Coliseum in the sky. And hey, love you and miss you too, Vita Blue. Today would have been your birthday. Hope you're enjoying things up there at the Coliseum in the sky as well. The rest of you all out there, hey, don't drink and drive. Wrap it before you tap it. Same old crap I used to get told before every single safety brief that I partook in during my time in the United States Marine Corps. Because we want to see you all right back here next week. Same bat time, same Twitch channel, just a different day, of course, it being Friday instead of Thursday, when we hit you all upside the head with the trade deadline edition of A's Fan Radio. Until then, good night, Oakland and beyond. And, of course, as always, hey, maybe our beloved team isn't committed to doing it, but the rest of y'all out there, I encourage you to forever and always stay Oakland, my friends. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you again here on August the 4th for the trade deadline edition of AFR. Take care, everybody. Be safe and enjoy the rest of your Friday night and the rest of your weekend.